going to go ahead and get started, and as people come in, they can trickle in. Just a couple of things. So for those, because I see a lot of new faces, which is great, right? The way my town halls usually work, I think this is the first time I'm bringing an actual PowerPoint, just to give an update. It's a little change that I want to do. Usually in my town halls, I do very little to no speaking, because the purpose of town halls is to listen to the concerns of the residents, right? We start off with the pledge, with prayer. We introduce everybody. We all get to know who we are. And then we'll start with the presentation, and from there I'll turn the mic over to whoever wants to ask questions. And I try to get you guys an answer within a week. I don't come prepared to answer right now. If I don't know the answer, I'd rather be truthful and say I don't know the answer, but I can find out, than me give you some bogus answer and you're like, this guy's, so. We can please stand, and Izzy's gonna do the pledge. Trying to break his shyness.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You just bow your heads really quick. Lord, I ask you to please be in charge of this meeting, allow us the capability of understanding and reasoning, and help us solve some of the issues and some of the concerns that we might have. Amen. All right. Can you guys hear me better without the microphone, or do you guys need the microphone?
Well, it's not really amplified.
Yeah, I think.
But is it picking up for your?
Yeah, the phone's right there. All right. So for this PowerPoint, we're doing some building and stronger Deltona. We're going to talk a little bit about stormwater and some solutions and citywide improvements. I've learned from somebody who's in this room, and I'm not going to say that person's name because then she'll get big-headed, that sometimes bringing data is actually a good thing. As she's smiling over there. So to your right, that's the Teresa Basin watershed and its boundaries. I put that up there because for information, right? The city of Deltona stormwater system is built on 5 basins, which include 4 within the city, which is McGarty, I always say that wrong, Gleason, Providence, and Teresa, and 1 outside the city, which is Deep Creek. For stormwater maintenance, the city is divided into 31 working sectors. This division of the city into manageable sectors allows a more efficient distribution of work efforts throughout the city. So what does that mean? That means that as we're getting closer to hurricane season, the city starts sending out public works, and they start dredging some of the swells, doing some landscaping to make sure that some of the drainage systems are not clogged. So very important stuff. Stormwater has 11 emergency portable stormwater pumps, which are maintained in good operating condition and ready to deploy as necessary. Thank you. Stormwater infrastructures include, and this is important because this way we have somewhat of an idea of what we have to work with, right? 15 pump stations throughout the city of Deltona, 540 feet of stormwater pipe, which is 97 miles, 100 plus drainage retention areas, 3,677 city-maintained stormwater basins, and 852 curb inlets. So there's a lot of maintaining to do, and obviously what the picture you see there is the picture of the famous weir that gets opened to make sure that our residents are not flooded. Again, this is more informational things, and I think it was useful. So stormwater staff is highly aware of areas that are impacted by nuisance flooding. So if I were to ask you guys, what tends to happen when it rains on Lake Helen, Osney Road, and Elkham? What do you guys think?
One section's under a foot of water.
There's always water.
Yeah.
You know. The city knows those nuisance areas, so that's what they mean with that. This knowledge of the city's stormwater infrastructure allows staff to prioritize attention to these areas prior to, during, and after a storm event. Stormwater Division provides ongoing stormwater system construction, roadside service drainage network maintenance, removal of obstructive vegetation from open ditches, cleaning of underground stormwater sewer network, and provides responsive emergency stormwater services, which is, all that work is conducted in those sectors that the city divides everyone into. This is some of the sandbag machine and operations that they do. So the city just bought 2 sandbag machines, which, let me tell you, that's gonna help a lot. So it'll allow production of up to 1,200 bags per hour per machine. So with 2 machines, you're looking at roughly about 2,400 bags of sand. This new equipment allows staff to pre-fill bags and provides a more efficient and faster process for residents to pick up sandbags. What was happening is we would have a lot of folks that would have some type of disability, some that probably were a little too young to drive, some folks that are a little bit older that needed to bring their own shovels, or shovels would be provided, but they didn't come with help, and there wasn't enough staff there to help them put the sand in the bags. Another benefit of the machines is it frees up staff to perform other tasks in advance of an impending storm event. All right, we have 3 studies. The city received funding from Transform 386 to have basin studies conducted for the following basins. What's very important is that we now seem to have a permanent city manager, right? We have good directors in each department that are now there permanently. I am now, for the first time as mayor, I'm starting to get reports from our attorneys on billing, from code enforcement on open cases, from our development folks on what's being proposed, what people are coming to build. Right now, there's really nothing. But the goal, the reason I'm saying that is the goal is once these studies get done, what is Deltona known for?
Not executing.
Bingo. So the goal is the city manager wants to make sure that once these studies are finished, we go to the next step. Because I can tell you some of these studies have been done, nothing happens. We did a study on impact fees, it went nowhere because we had like 3 city managers in the way, and now look where we're at. Studies already being conducted, which is the biggest one, the Teresa Basin flood study, is anticipated to provide capital improvement projects that will mitigate flooding impacts to this basin. So very important. All right, we have a Menzie muck that we ordered, and we don't have it yet, which is that big machine that's right here. But we are contracting with someone that is actually doing some of the work. That thing looks like a transformer and does all this really amazing cleanup stuff, mainly around lakes, which is some of the harder areas to get to. While waiting delivery of this equipment, the city has a contractor, like I said, that's working on maintenance and vegetation removal on 10 of the most difficult terrain ditches in the city. The remaining ditches and canals are maintained by staff using an ABI slope tractor, which is the one on the bottom. It's almost like a John Deere with a little push more, obviously a lot more function. Proposed sidewalks and installation, right? I know it looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 different sidewalks that are being put in. If you look at that, that's about $400 close to $500,000 for those sidewalks. So as we get money from state and other different agencies, that's what we have to push out, right? I know the goal right now is to get a sidewalk at a minimum on one side of the street, and once that's all completed, then we can start doing it on the other side of the street. Then we're also looking at the fact that some of the sidewalks in specific areas, like I'll use Howland as an example, just caution, Howland is a county road, not a city road. Those main thoroughfare roads, we gotta make sure that some of those roads are, the sidewalks are ADA compliant. So meaning that if somebody's going with a wheelchair or one of those automatic scooters, somebody can also walk right by them and not run them into like the grassy area. So we got a couple, like I said, we got Fort Smith, we got 2 in Fort Smith. So some of these roads they're seeing this for the first time, and I can tell you some of the neighbors are getting very excited about that. So I got 2 little girls on my street. I have sidewalk all the way up to my house, and then I guess they're like the neighborhood too, right? This joke. Bad joke, but it was a joke. This is one of my most favorite stuff right here. Streets to be milled, resurfaced, and stripes. When I first got elected, I remember sitting down with then City Manager Chisholm, and one of the things that I told him was extremely annoying is that for years, Normandy between Saxon and Providence, you drove by there and your transmission would fall off the car. And I drove it every day and I got yelled at, "Mayor, you're not doing anything." Well, I drive it too, so I get it. So my discussion with Chisholm was, can we get action? Not because of me, but the residents have a point. This has been going on for years. He called the Public Works Director. "Hey, what's going on?" Well, the former city manager, not mentioning his name, said that it needs to be re-engineered and we have to actually tear up the road. The very next day, there was trucks out there. I don't hear a single person complaining about that anymore. It was fixed. Some of these things could really get fixed that easy. There was money in the budget for that, to be fair. So we got to make sure that we're also not putting ourselves in a situation where we don't want to be. But all those roads that you see there, those should all be done before 2026, or the budget year between 2025 to 2026. So I believe that's August 2026. Welcome. And I'll provide all this to you guys. It'll be on social media, email, and if you want to distribute an email, I'll forward it to you. The big one.
I answered Facebook today.
Okay.
About an hour ago.
So this is the real big one, right? So this is the update on the lake. By the way, it's called Lake Monroe Boat Ramp. It's not called the Lakeshore Boat Ramp. I just learned this. This item will be presented during the August 18th commission meeting. They didn't put it on a workshop, they put it on a commission meeting so we can execute something so something can get done, right? The update will include the current status of the boat ramp project, progress on permitting and design, the next steps in coordination with state partners. From what I can tell you, so I don't spoil anything, we've been doing a lot of work. To the city manager's credit, take the politicians out of it. The city manager and her staff have done a lot of good hard work on getting this problem solved that came from past commission and past city managers. So this is getting done. What I can say is there's even a possibility of maybe, not saying it's going to happen, but maybe looking at moving the boat ramp to a little bit further down, so it's not a safety issue. Because if you guys have been down there, it's kind of a tight turn to get the boats in there. And believe it or not, that ramp is meant for 2 boats, and it's only 2 lanes, one way and then the other. All right, these are the upcoming town halls I have coming up. August 27th at 11 a.m. in the same room. We have a senior citizens town hall. I do this every single year. I have respect for our seniors. A lot of them tell me, "Mayor, I can't drive it." And we have the council on aging that's right across the hall. They love it. They come in here. Believe it or not, this is pretty packed. And let me tell you, that's a tough crowd because they get on me. And then they all come and hug me and they're like, "We love you. We want you to be successful." Yeah, okay. September 24th. I have a big business and entrepreneur town hall. I started doing this last year, so this will be my second year. When I did it last year, we had about 40 businesses show up. This year's going to be completely different. I learned from last year what we were missing. This year we have our economic development director coming in with permission from our city manager. I have somebody coming in from Deltona State College. We have the land and Greater West Volusia Chamber coming in to provide more information to businesses. And then we're going to also have some folks here that are going to be able to tell you, listen, if I want to have a home-based business, what do I need? And some people don't know that. Maybe you just need a little fire inspection, a little,
You don't need a fire inspection.
you know. So they'll be here to answer a lot of those questions. You know, I actually had somebody call me like, will they talk about Airbnbs? Yes, there'll be a conversation about Airbnbs as well. October 29th is my third quarter town hall. It's normal, it's just like this. I'll probably provide another slide. Again, my town halls, those I've been doing every single year since I've been mayor. So. And I do them every quarter. The only quarter I never do is the fourth quarter because it's around Christmas time. I did it once and one person showed up. Lastly, November 13th, Vice Mayor Harriet and I host the town hall for diabetes awareness. I've been doing this every single year since I've been mayor. This is hosted by a diabetes specialist from Advent Health. They partner with us. You know, we have the room here. That gets pretty packed. Vice Mayor Harriet has type 1 diabetes. I have type 2 diabetes. Thankfully, I'm little by little reversing it to be pre-diabetic again. But you learn a lot. You know, people don't know diabetes, dementia, and some forms of Alzheimer's are being now diagnosed as type 3 diabetes. I just learned 5 months ago that there is something new called type 1.5 diabetes, which means that you developed a type 2 diabetes, which you usually get after you're born. But then you're going to need it for the rest of your life, so you become essentially a permanent diabetic. So that's something new. I got tested for that. Thankfully, it's not my case, but it's good to know because diabetes is a huge killer, and people don't realize. And it's just moderating how you eat and doing a lot of studying on that type of disease. And that's it. My contact information is there. This is the part where I'll take questions on the power slide, but before we do that, I'm going to go around the room and take your names if you feel like giving your name, and you can start asking your questions as well. That doesn't work. That one doesn't work. So this one, the volume is not high enough. Testing.
There we go.
Hello.
Test 1, 2.
Oh, much better. Hello. It is a man voice thing. I haven't gone through puberty apparently. I'll start through your song. Your mirror has really dark.
Say what your chest.
Yeah. Here we go.
I'm saying her name.
Your name, and then we'll go back to questions.
Terry Ellis.
David Newcomer.
Scott Kaufman.
Mark Matthews.
Stacy Matthews.
Mike Bowman.
Jamie Chesson.
Lisa Green.
All right. Who has the first question? Besides him. I'm teasing you. I'll get to you after the one. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, thank you. The last meeting that I had come to was my first, and I did have a concern about the hurricanes and everybody pointing fingers, and the problem still wasn't resolved, but you had given me your card and told me to contact you, and I did, and I just got crickets, so.
So what was it about the tree?
Yeah, somebody else's tree falling in the yard, landing on the power line, all of that stuff.
So did Ms. Wallace not contact you? Okay. I'll follow up with the city manager because I was told that you were contacted, and I believe Duke Energy was contacted as well.
No, I haven't.
Then it could be somebody else. Before I leave, just make sure I have your phone number so we can see what it is that's happening.
Okay.
Okay? Anybody else have a question? I'll go to you right after him.
With the stormwater issues you're discussing in different parts of the city, I know that you've got everything broken down in different sectors. Has there been any discussion at all, looking back at, I know I brought up the race based study, the study people kind of blew me off like I didn't know what I was talking about, looking back all the way back into the Mackle brothers and looking at some of the problems that are really dating from what Jimmy Varnall, the original engineer, did, and looking at some of the other cities like Cape Coral, Punta Gorda, Anna Maria, some of the other places they were developing, and also major flooding, and looking at the federal government trying to bail some of this stormwater and infrastructure problems out. Going to somebody like Corey Mills, you've got a voice of 1 million people if you get all these cities together. Has there been any? I know we've discussed in the past looking at that range, but from leadership-wise within the city manager or anyone else.
I swear it's my voice.
No, it's not.
So right now, there's about $31 million that is historical for the city of Deltona.
But that's
It's-
state money, right?
No.
Federal?
This is something that Congressman Mills and I worked on. To be fair, the staff did all the work. I just asked the right questions. And it has passed the U.S. Congress, meaning it's passed the House and it's passed the Senate. It is now going through a third level, which I never knew existed. I thought House, the balances was just House, Senate, and then President. It is under the Army Corps of Engineers budgetary process. If they feel that Deltona can use those $31 million to help fix some of our issues, it'll go to the President so he can sign off on it. And then for the first time in Deltona history, we will receive a historical $31 million, right? So that's going to be a big part of the conversation. It needs to be that. But teaming up with other cities to try to put in some type of lawsuit, we're already dealing with some of that other
And the other
stuff.
question I had is about the sandbags. Where are we getting that sand from?
That's a good question.
I hope that we're not part of the group that's raping and pillaging the shoreline of New Smyrna the
No.
way they're doing to rebuild Daytona Beach right now.
No. The answer to that part is no, but I can find out for you where we are.
I'm just hoping they're not dredging it off somebody else's property.
I mean, they're dredging out of somewhere, but
I hope that it's not something that's coastal.
This is not for infrastructure type scenarios.
Yeah.
The cat problem that Deltona's got with all the colonies. I understand you recently had and completed a workshop. Can you give us a quick synopsis on the results of the workshop, as well as, my understanding is they're going to continue to allow the cat colonies to stay in the areas they're in and have one person feed them. To me, that's not going to get rid of them.
what Deltona used to have, this is much better.
Yeah.
What Deltona used to have in the TNR program was not working. I made that very clear in my statements, right?
Totally agree.
Obviously, something needs to be done, and not doing anything also is not solving the problem. There was no structure. It was just a permanent pilot program, almost like a bridge to nowhere, right? Some of the structures that are being put in place now is we have to register where the cat's being picked up from, not just clip it in here. We need to know where we picked it up from. Because one of the issues we were having was there was complaints that cats were coming in from other cities and Deltona residents were paying to get them spayed and neutered. That was legitimately a problem. So now we have to register, okay, they're picked up on this area. We are restricting the cats from being, any colonies from being near a food restaurant area. For example, one of our newly opened restaurants has a big issue with the smell of feces in their back alley. And the cats are gonna kind of go there because there used to be a colony, now we gotta move them away. I caught somebody yesterday illegally feeding a colony. She got out of her van at the Walmart by Hungry Howie's and that the Fairwinds Bank on Howland Boulevard, dumped a case of cat food in one of our retention areas. And I looked and I took a picture of her license plates. I went up to her, I was like, ma'am, are you part of the TNR program? Oh yeah, I'm approved by Volusia County. I was like, no, this is city limits. So I typically don't report people because I like people to live free lives, but we have to start reporting some of these folks so it stops, right? So part of what we discussed in the workshop is we're trying to go to a non-for-profit. We're willing to do about $60,000, which is what we currently spend. There needs to be structure, meaning that we need to be able to gauge if the program is working. Because if you're still getting more cats and the population is not going down at some point, maybe year 2 or 3, it's not working. We got to fix it. We are understanding that we're gonna put out a lot of information out there. For example, there are state statutes in the state of Florida. You leave a dog or a cow in a dangerous area where they can potentially die, you're gonna get in a lot of trouble, okay? We are also a bird sanctuary city. There's about 2 or 3 places in the state of Florida as scrub jays go. Well, cats love to eat birds. So we also don't want to put them in danger. So there's a lot of this that's going in place. The attorney is going to write up the ordinance, the legal jargon and language. There are conversations about putting hefty fines to illegal feeders. If you want to feed cats, be registered with the TNR program so we know who you are and you know what the structure and the work is. Dumping literally 2.5 gallons of cat food in a retention area where who knows if there's a small alligator in there or not, eats a cat and then they all get stuck in there and now we got flooding issues. That's not the way that works. And it's right next to Hungry Howie's. I get it, it says pizza, but it's still another food location. So we still have an ordinance which we wanted to make sure that was understood. You're only allowed five dogs roughly per house. Same for cats. If you have 25 cats in your house, that is not acceptable. It is not legal. So those are some of the issues. I don't know if that answered your question, but as soon as I get that legal ordinance pushed out to all of us, I will make sure that it is shared with the public, which I believe the intention is.
I got a big voice. So listen, I will sound really loud. I'm used to talking.
Trust me, it's not that loud. That one is.
In reference to the Army Corps of Engineers, will there be a report that's sent out that we will see as to their findings after reviewing it?
That's a great question. I don't know that answer, but I can ask. I have some business cards back there, and there's a phone number there, by the way. If you can text me, that way I make sure, and what I'm gonna start doing is, I'll send the email. Once you email me, I will forward that email, and then I will make sure I put a little notification to follow
Okay, because if there's no report, there's no action. It's just that simple.
up. That's the way government works. I believe it.
Yeah, born and raised Washington D.C. Just moved before, so.
You know.
Yes, that's why I said, wait, if they're involved, you have to have a report to say, yeah, we did look.
And they usually, so the Army Corps of Engineers is one of those government entities that people have a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
So when they get something and they say, hey, this is what's going on, it's pretty accurate. So
Yes.
I'd be interested in seeing that report.
Yes,
So just as a follow-up, just as a follow-up,
Hey, man, let's just,
just as a follow-up to the gentleman's question about the TNR program, currently then, we only have that very vague ordinance that's on the books. We only are allowed 5 animals per house. So just so it's out there on the record for anybody else, and I already know the answer to this, but you reported to the city that the city is under an obligation to go remove anything above and beyond those 5 animals right now, so that people aren't having to put up with that.
I'm not an attorney. I believe the answer is yes. I can get a clarifying answer to that tomorrow. But I believe the answer is yes. And even with the new ordinance, you're still only allowed 5 animals.
And any of these people that have the signs in front of their house, anything else, that those signs don't mean anything.
There is no sign. Somebody reported some type of sign that says, I don't even know what it says. Those are not
Yeah, there's a home down off of Portland and Doyle that it's just designated cat colony.
What do you suggest we do to get rid of the issue of feral cats coming through our properties? Simply because they're bringing other animals as well.
Just transport them to Sanctuary City.
So here's some of the issues I see there. One of the biggest problems we have is we get people that move into the city, or not even people that have been here for a while. They get a pet, they don't realize how much work a pet actually is, and they just open the door and they push them, right? That's part of the education plan that we need, is to push to our residents, hey, if you have a cat, surrender it. And I get it, you don't want to surrender it to a shelter that might kill it, but if you look at what's happening outside, you have coyotes, they're eating them alive. I've heard 2 of those, and this is horrible. Hearing a cat being eaten alive, it's not something fun to listen to. And I don't sit there and watch the Discovery Channel very often, so I don't need to see that. For here. So I think we need to push that education out. That's number one. Number two, we need a structured program that has goals, right? Now I sound like Terry. That has goals that we can identify if something is working. If it works, let's continue it until we see the cat colony start going down. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that because what's there now, it's a 1 paragraph pilot program. And I know the former, and I'm not trying to pick on him, okay? The former mayor was there and said, oh, this is very successful. It was not successful. I've seen people go to City Hall to dump cats, and I made that comment, at the Magnolia Preserve. You just fed the coyotes because they're going to eat those cats. And now we have bobcats there. And the more of these predators we have, you're going to get wolves, and it's just going to keep going and going. So it's natural. It's part of the
So I didn't come here for this issue, but when I walk in my neighborhood, I see on the street where it's like somebody has a bowl for cats to eat. Is that going to be illegal? I'm talking about in the street, across the street from somebody's house.
You can't have that in just on any property. So those are one of the things that the city attorney is trying to figure out. For example, we currently have cat colonies, right? Who allowed them to be there? Because some of the folks that I heard complain from, without mentioning their name, they own a property that has not been developed yet. They're regular. I mean, it's only an infill. You can't build anything out but a house. But somebody's created that into a cat colony, and these cats are not paying them rent, is their complaint, and they're paying property taxes, very minimal, but they're still paying property taxes on that. So that's something that needs to get figured out. We can't just have bowls of cat food all over the place.
How many cats are in a colony?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out, but I don't know.
Right. So what happens is I've been walking down the road and I've got a flashlight and I see the eyes. I see like 10 eyes, and then all of a sudden they scatter when I come by. Then I saw the pole. I never thought about it, what was going on, but it looks like somebody's vehicle.
I can try to find out how many. That's a good question, and I don't think any of us asked that question. How many cats are in each colony?
I can tell when they've been captured, fixed, and then brought back, because you can see them in my backyard. They'll walk down and they've got their tails clipped and they got a tag on the ear. And there's a lot of them. I mean, they keep spreading.
I will tell you that I have heard a complaint. This is where it started for me. Somebody complained that her son's nurse, well, the Tesla, rightfully so, he worked really hard and he likes his nice car. Had his Tesla and he stopped going to take care of her son because a cat scratched his brand new Tesla. I get it. I don't care if it was a Toyota Camry or I drive a Kia. I don't care. It's still my car. I don't care if it's not new. I don't want nobody to scratch my car. If anyone scratches, it's going to be me. I get it. And then her other complaint was when you go to her porch, it reeks of urine. They broke into her screen porch and they just urinate all over the back. And she has little kids. It just doesn't work. So I understand.
That's the way my backyard is. It reeks of the stuff.
Well,
And there's raccoons all over the place now because of it.
I have 3 dachshunds, so the cats usually don't mess with my yard.
How many?
3. And for the most part, there are inside the house. So.
As far as the infrastructure and storm drainage goes, with possible hurricanes coming, we saw in Texas when there was a flood, they received pushback from FEMA. What does our city have in plans if we need FEMA to make sure that we don't receive that same pushback?
That's a great question. I'm going to attempt to answer a little bit of it, but I'm going to have to defer that to our congressman, which I can try to get you a connection to that.
I know how to contact myself.
Okay. So obviously there's been a lot of cuts that are happening, and FEMA has been on the discussion of whether it should be there or not. And unfortunately, FEMA has become, because I've heard the complaints, very political, especially this past year. If you had a certain yard sign in front of your house, here in Deltona, FEMA passed it. That was not an urban legend, it really was happening. And I'm not talking about presidents, I'm talking about even senators. whoever you had there, some of them were passed over. I called them myself and I filed a complaint, hey, this resident was passed over a silly political, it's First Amendment right. And they would go back, they would apologize, so I don't know what the plan is gonna be at the end of the day. The city, what I can tell you what we're trying to do is, we're trying to make sure that our weir stays open so we can manage our flow of water. That weir was shut closed for 25 years, and our engineer made that very public. Whoever was responsible for opening that weir, this last hurricane saved us a lot of homes. And that was a lot of relationship building. I'm not gonna take full credit for it, but that was me calling to the governor's office, getting the lieutenant governor involved, her chief of staff, her calling to St. John's River Management, then going back and forth, and within a couple of days, I get a call, hey, we got the green light, and then 15 minutes after that, the interim city manager, Mr. Whitcomb, was personally out there opening the weir. So the weir's one of the things that we want to make sure we're able to control. We're looking with these studies, we're trying to make sure that we can probably have another outfall or even a burrow pit like the Berry has. We can't rely on just one outfall. We're a big city, right? Population-wise, we're the largest in Volusia, second largest in Central Florida, but we're also a big city. There's right after Deltona Beach. I think Deltona Beach is the largest in size. So we're looking at those two other options. Obviously, this year we went to the state. We got $2.5 million that was approved. Very small number, $750,000 was vetoed, which is great. We got the bigger pot. We're using that money to make sure that we continue to upgrade our systems. Pump stations is a good example. It doesn't know that I have a pump station if it doesn't have some type of a generator built in, right? So one of my goals is, can we make sure that all future pump stations that we're getting, or lift stations, have some type of a generator that's attached to it? Now, from my understanding is we're getting the ones that we're buying the generators because those are already there. So those are some of the things that we're implementing, and of course the maintenance. It does you no good if your drains are clogged. So,
with the dredging issue that you guys were discussing, has there been any conversation on going back to what were dry lake beds for 20 years? And I know there's been an argument over whether the city or the county at that time have been responsible for maintaining them. You know, look how many of them have trees that are still rotted out growing in them, that now becoming rotting vegetation at the bottom of those lakes. That's keeping the water system flowing properly.
the thing with any lake or body of water in the state of Florida, or I think everywhere, anything you're trying to do there, you're gonna have to go to, usually through two people. The St. John's River Management Group, and maybe, or sometimes, the Army Corps of Engineers, right?
But has there been any discussion on dredging those lakes because of those trees and all that underbrush that was allowed to sit there?
There's been discussion of what would it look like. As a matter of fact, this discussion came up because of Mr. Everson, and a conversation he had with Mr. Himes of maybe digging some of these lakes a little bit deeper. Some of the factors that prevent us from doing that is we get closer and closer to the water table, and sometimes that really has no effect. All you're doing is making the water from the bottom come up faster. So we're trying to get creative, but there's only so much we can do when Mother Nature wants to do her thing, you know. But we need to be prepared. That's
for at least for the removal of that vegetation, cutting down of those trees. Because even a lot of those lakes now aren't even able to be used by people. They're just sitting.
And some of those areas, example, Catalina, when you're driving by
Like El Cam's a great example. When you go just past the ballparks, the lakes on either side there, I mean, you've got trees that are going out 40 feet into the water.
So, but what I'm trying to say is some of those lakes fall within private property, so we're not able to get into them. The lakes that are within ours, I can find out tomorrow or the day after what the process is, but even then, you still have to, any vegetation, even if it looks like weeds that you remove from St. John's River Management, they will find you and they will continue to find you. And Twin Lakes was a good example. They had a resident that went in there, bought a brand new house or bought a house, tried to make it look beautiful, beautified it, removed all these, they look like these spiky little weeds. St. John went in there and the whole community got fined. They're like, those are not weeds, those are natural plants that need to stay there. There's a reason they're there, and they're still paying a debt to fix the issue, to remediate the problem.
can we go back into the slides, because I have a number of questions. Go back to, okay, let's go back to the sidewalks. Oh, great, okay, sidewalks. So how are those sidewalks, prioritized? I mean, listen, it's great that all this has been done, but how do we know that there aren't, when it comes to the sidewalks, how do we know that there aren't other areas that need it more? And one of the things that we talked about during our strategy meetings was walkability. So do those sidewalks feed into our walkability strategy?
So, it's funny because I actually asked that question. I thought you would answer that question. Number one priority on sidewalks is what proximity they are to a school. If they're within a certain mileage that they need to by state statute, they need to prioritize those first. Then secondly, they prioritize connectivity. If they are able to connect or finish a connection to another sidewalk, which allows the majority of the residents to have continuity across the majority of the city. And then third, then they'll look at some of the more rural areas and areas that don't have any sidewalks on either side.
Okay, good answer. We have a strategy. Can we go to the streets? Okay, same question. How are those streets prioritized?
I'm still waiting on an answer from that one. I will tell you that moving forward, we're going to be looking at streets that are been crocodiling, which means the streets that you can see are all cracked up, and that's usually from an issue with water from beneath it. But these are from the prior interim city manager, not Glenn, but the one before that. So this was already budgeted. They need to finish getting these roads milled, resurfaced, and striped, and then they will.
That makes sense. I mean, we have a list. Let's do the list, and then let's figure out a future strategy. Okay.
Yeah, because I know there's been some folks that, hey, I just got my new mill not too long ago, or resurfaced, and now they're doing it again.
Okay, now I'm going to ask a question that I've been asking going back before Milton. I don't even know which one it was before that, but this is my question. So we're focused obviously around the lakes. I understand why, everybody understands why, but there's a lot of pockets throughout the city. And my question has been, and what I can't get an answer to is, how are we recording those pockets of flooding so that as we're looking at a storm, is there a plan to go out and make sure that any drains are cleared and so forth? How are we capturing that data? Because the last time I was told, they're like, well, that's gonna be on the flood maps. No, it's not. Those are the city has to capture those individual locations.
I have a partial answer to that.
Okay.
So right now we're capturing them through the sectors program. It's not an old thing that we used to do. It's something that apparently we started doing is, since we're going through these sectors, let's make sure we catch that. Also, we're trying to see how we can develop some type of a plan. So, God forbid, we are hit with another hurricane. There's, in the FEMA form, and you know this better than anyone,
I told you.
unless the resident is allowing that data share between the city and FEMA, the city gets no information.
Right.
So we're trying to see what we can do to develop some type of partnership where unless the resident opts out, it's automatically included. And I'm usually not a fan of that stuff, but because we're talking about flood maps and the importance of not flooding, something needs to be done because typically nobody's going to subscribe to, yeah, sure, my data with the city on the flood.
So, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
So you want the residents to participate in some of these situations where they contacted you in reference to a pond. With all the technology that's out there now, having a camera possibly in the vicinity of this in just a old school table? Because I remember that from 4-H Club. So I'm trying to piece this together in my head, but if there was an option to have those two things, is it necessary for someone to contact you if you have eyes on it through optical?
You know what the biggest issue is? we've had so much instability as a city.
Yeah.
I know it seems like such a simplistic BS answer,
But it's the truth.
but we've had so much instability that I'm gonna say this, and hopefully the city won't get mad at me for saying this. I recently ran into and she's gonna love this. I just recently ran into a system that our planning people can get, and they highlight an area, whatever which way they want to, and it tells you the age of the infrastructure, roughly how much longer that infrastructure is going to last. It tells you the potential of how much development and density that can go in that area. It'll tell you how much it would cost the developer to build in that area, and you can rent it out to developers, for example, in areas that you want to, so the city gets a kickback from that. And it also shows developers, hey, you can't build here because we don't have enough cup or consumption for water use for you to build that there, you know? And a good example of that is one of our commissioners, I'm assuming that person's name, released a statement about a business that wanted to come to Deltona on a phase 3 from Team Volusia. They weren't supposed to release that information. They're not going to be able to come to Deltona. They need so much water consumption that I think our residents would literally crucify us. It's not, I don't believe it can happen. So there's so many things that are so simplistic that would help solve a lot of these issues, but because the lack of stability, we don't have them. We're starting to have them, but it is going to take a little bit of time. And then us commissions, the inner fighting, the constant, let's not trust the person we have there, all that nonsense, the childish stuff doesn't help. So once we learn to come together like adults, and as a city we grow up like a big city, some of those growing pains will eventually subside. We'll have other ones because it never goes away. But to answer your question in a very simple way is we have not had stability.
I do have a couple of questions, and it's also surrounding like cuts, not necessarily a tumor or anything. But with there being cuts to things like SNAP, Medicaid, things like that, is there any community plan to start like a community garden to teach people how to be more self-sufficient?
So there is a community garden. Ms. Ellis can probably give you more information. Sorry, I know she's trying to get away from that field, but I keep putting her in. So there is a community gardens. I will tell you, your mayor is part of an organization called No Kid Left Hungry, and it's also called the Mayor's Alliance. So what I try to do is, I've been trying to work with this organization, and not this last time, but the prior time I went to DC, that time I went on my own time, it was COVID. I met with Senator Rubio, then Senator Scott, because that's our senators, not because they're Republican. I met with Congressman Mills, and the conversation was regarding SNAP. Instead of taking away SNAP for the people that need it, let's try to focus on, instead of allowing them to buy sodas and candy, restrict it to fruits, vegetables, and meats, things that they actually need for nutrition, not necessarily for things that help with their diabetes.
Treat it closer to WIC then.
So the conversation then, they asked, very fair question, well, they're gonna say that we're micromanaging what they're able to buy. Well, that's not necessarily true. It's other taxpayers' money that we're using to subsidize for their need of food, right? And as Americans, we're very generous people. So a lot of people don't have an issue with that, but they would have an issue if you're using that to continue to get your child or your family sick. So there is some things that I've been working with. There's something else I'm working on. I can't talk about it because there is an NDA signed. I will say it's with Instacart, and that's as much as I can go, but there are programs. There's a program out of Ohio, for example, which is what I'm trying to model after, and it's all based on grants. So there's things that we're doing as a city, myself as a mayor, to try to advocate for the people that have an actual legitimate need for this stuff.
Another thing, since in the past year homelessness and public camping was made illegal to publicly camp, and now we have this executive order that may or may not get blocked, what is the city doing to provide housing options for the homeless, which was supposed to be a stipulation when this was passed for the public camping to be illegal?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I want you to think for a moment how, as a government locally, we are speaking from two ends of our mouth. We're telling people that we want to get them affordable housing, and then we're pushing a moratorium for whatever the reason you want to say it is, other than honestly being political. You can't work with both. I have personally asked administration. It wasn't a big poll, but I did a small poll. 1,000 something, close to 2,000 people answered. I would have to look for it now, but at some point I provided it to somebody because they wanted it as a public record. And it said, the majority of that poll said no more housing. But then 90% of those same people said, if it's affordable housing, we're okay with it. So our residents understand that there is a need, right? So for reasons like that is why Senate Bill 181 was passed. By the way, beyond popular belief, that was a very nonpartisan bill. Only one person voted against it. Democrats and Republicans all voted for it. Do I agree with it? Not necessarily, but I'm not trying to sue the state with that. There's ways that you can negotiate to fix that. That's why final plats have been removed from the politicians and been given to the administrators because they have degrees in engineering and planning, urban design, and things like that. The short answer, I don't know what's going to happen between the municipalities and the state. I do know that something has to happen where we need to have a sit-down conversation. I happen to be the chairman of an organization of mayors for the state of Florida. It is a partisan organization, but my goal is I want to be involved in the conversation to amend SB 180 respectfully, so nobody gets upset. I want to be part of the conversation in the property taxes conversation of the removal. Believe it or not, I think I'm fair game when it's let's remove property taxes. I'm okay with that. But we have to have contingency things in there because we also don't want to put us in a situation where cities won't survive, right? Those are two of the top three things that I want to make sure that we're getting good dialogue between the state and the city. The third thing is there's a DOGE implementation. Again, I'm not trying to get partisan. There's a DOGE implementation already in place. Instead of trying to hire an auditor that's going to cost my residents all this money, I made a suggestion of, hey, why don't we just let DOGE come in here? Now, I will tell you, one of the next meetings coming up, I'm going to release a letter that I got. I'm trying to get the Joint Legislative Committee to audit the city of Deltona. Their letter said that there's really nothing there for them to audit. We have a great history in our audits. It is a letter from the state. They are the ones that audited Winter Haven. So there needs to be more dialogue between the city and the state, though. That is for sure.
So how getting rid of property taxes going to affect, how's getting rid of property taxes going to affect the residents who are been here a long time? So for instance, I pay $1,200 a year in property taxes. Down the street, Commissioner Lowley pays $6,500. Now, that's because save our home. So yeah. How is this getting rid of property tax going to reshuffle and force people like me to pay more taxes? Is that going to happen?
I don't think so. So what I'm trying to propose, right, is duplication of taxes should be removed. I'll give you a good example. In the city of Deltona, we pay roughly about don't fully quote me on this, but 33% property tax for the city of Deltona. 34% property tax for the county of Volusia, 30-something% tax for Volusia County School Board, and then we have the hospital, the two hospital authorities, one of them doesn't pay any taxes. So that's what we're doing. My initial, what I am trying to propose to the state is, let's remove that property tax that we pay to Volusia County, which will save all of my residents 33% in their property tax. Now, they have to be homeowners. Renters like me, sorry, it doesn't work that way.
But it does because you pay them indirectly.
Correct.
Because
but
if I own a house and I'm renting to you, my property taxes go up, I'm going to charge you.
But correct. But what I'm trying to say is I can apply as the renter. It would have to be the homeowner, right? And what that does, and this is a good example, and I had this conversation with our county councilman, and he's okay with it. He's like, that's a great idea. We have our own planning department. We have our own water department. Granted, some of the water part of it is the county side, but we are paying, or our residents are paying 33, 34% to the county for services that we are already paying. So
but then the question becomes, and by the way, I'm for cutting.
I think
But
everybody is.
if you're gonna cut the tax, you gotta cut the spending. Unless you guys are just sitting on money somewhere.
So on this portion of it, the county would have to manage how they're spending. It really wouldn't affect the city's spending.
So there's money to cut.
Yeah, why are we paying the county 33, 34%?
We don't, right, what are we paying them for?
Well, I listen, I'm not for paying it. I'm just saying that
Well,
here's
then
what's
that'd be
gonna
their
happen.
problem to figure it out.
If you go take 34% of whatever that money we're sending them, all of a sudden they don't have it. Some's gonna get cut somewhere else.
That's their problem.
If you, listen, I'm for not supporting the east side of the county. I think we, on the west side of the county, get gypped. I've been saying that for years. Everything goes over there, all the projects go over there, they don't come here. And, you know, all you need to do is look at one Deltona, and I can name them. But, you know, so I'm for cutting it, but overall, my concern is that unless you cut the spending, I don't know how you cut the tax.
So I'm trying not to get into that too
If
much.
not, if you replace it with another tax, that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, sales tax might go up, right?
Well, and that's why I don't support that. If we're gonna cut that tax, we should have, because we're not looking at, everyone's like, oh, it's only gonna be 3%. No, it's not. For it to be manageable, you're looking at 22% sales tax. I
I'm not
think
for that.
before, that's not manageable for me. What I'm trying to say is, because this is still going through my board's process of the Mayor's Association for policy, the only other snippet I can tell you is, part of that conversation needs to be that DOJ needs to come into a lot of these cities and say, you know what? You guys actually have some decent amount of money. Could you, let's talk about a full rollback, for example. I know the city of Deltona is reducing their millage again. How much I final numbers, I don't know just yet. Sanford just announced that they were gonna increase it. I believe Seminole's gonna increase it. Some of the other cities, and I'm not gonna mention them so we don't start a war, they're talking about increasing the millage. Deltona is one of the few that's actually talking about still reducing it, and it's gonna be pretty close to a full rollback. And against popular belief, we're pretty good with our finances. Again, that's not because of the mayor politicians.
So the mayor,
That's because there is now a permanent city manager and directors that are catching and making sure we fix some of the nonsense.
So 20 years ago, our property tax we were collecting citywide was $12 million. Now it's about 3 times the amount. Okay? And all the expenses have continuously gone up and up and up. I haven't seen any cuts, and I don't know where you would cut, but that's my concern is so for instance, I can tell you some ideas for like school board, but you don't have control of that. I mean, I don't know why we have schools that are open only 9 months out of the year, buildings that are open only 9 months out of the year, and used wastefully the way we do it. But I'm sure that if we started looking at that, I'm sure there's ways to cut. The problem is I don't hear the cuts coming, and if you don't have cuts, then you're gonna need the taxes.
You'll hear it some from the city when we start doing the trim bills. I can tell you that we cut some positions that have been advertised for I don't know how long, really weren't needed because they were able to cut them. I know that you will see when we start doing the trim notices some of the things that we're cutting, because it's very obvious.
Well, I've seen this rotation that we cut and we raise, we cut, we raise, we cut, and raise, and now because I'm gonna save my homes, I don't get hit with it. It's bad, but when you have people that are paying $6,000 and $8,000 a year in taxes, if you see a 10% increase or 5% over a period of time, that's a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And so I mean, we just have a whole list of spending here. We have another list of spending on that one, on the whole projected. And I'm not saying these things are needed, because they are. But what we got to do is quit spending money on stuff that we don't need. I remember back 20 years ago, you probably remember, we talked about this. We spent, I made a list of $11 million, 1 year's worth of property taxes that we spent on nice things, projects, but Idea of the Month Club. And that's part of what our problem is in our city, that's what I call the city commission, the Idea of the Month Club. And every 2 years, we get a new set and we get an own price. I have been at least 4 visiting sessions in the city, and I know they've had more. I quit going because all that happens is we talk about what we're going to do and never do it.
So a lot of that is because, again, we do all these studies, we have no follow through. One of the biggest things that annoyed me when I became mayor is our land development code and our LDC and our comp plans are broken, right? The root cause, and what identifies that is when you have rezones and people coming back and saying, hey, I need to get a variance. People have property rights. It annoys me to see us up there like judge and executioners and say, we're not going to allow you to have a pool in your backyard. If we fix some of our land development codes, if we fix our comp plans, that helps rectify a lot of those problems. But you're right. We also have to cut back our spending. That's why it's important that the Doge part gets implemented, because they're the ones that are going to be monitoring and saying, why are you raising tax? As a matter of fact, I think Blaze, who, by the way, is a personal friend, the new CFO, he said it on TV the other day, you have some of these cities, regardless if they're blue or red cities, that are continuing to increase their millage, even though their property taxes have gone up. So they're automatically already collecting more money. So there needs to be a Doge implementation of there to make sure that somebody is monitoring and there's a good reason why a millage rate is going up.
So we keep hearing about home rule, but that doesn't sound like home rule. That sounds like state rule. And so that's what I'm talking about. We need to decide what is important for like your home rule or your state rule. But the problem is again, it's not the commission. It's all the governments. The Idea of the Month Club. As soon as somebody else gets the power, we're doing something different. For instance, I railed against septic for sewer, okay, in this city. I don't hear that very much anymore. But that was the talk of the town for 5-6 years.
A while.
This is slightly off topic, but especially with the world that we live in surrounding immigration, if ICE is in our city, will they be working with the Volusia County Sheriff's Department and detaining people?
Yes. Listen, I'm going to say this as somebody who has 2 parents that came here legally, one from Mexico, one from Cuba, a wife that came here legally. I understand a lot of this stuff. My biggest issue is my wife had to wait a long time to become a U.S. citizen. A long time.
Yeah, and it's expensive.
It is very, trust me, I know I paid it.
Worth it, though.
It is 100%. You ask my wife what she is, she doesn't say I'm Ecuadorian, she says I'm American, right? She's still, her English is still not very good looking, but she tries her darn best, right? The point I'm trying to make is that, unfortunately, because of the little sum, the ones that are out there doing the bad stuff, a lot of other people pay for that, right? So
yeah, but they shouldn't be, as well as people that have been citizens that have been detained, as well as veterans. There's been numerous counts of that. So I think it's problematic that they're integrating with the sheriff's department, and also we shouldn't have them being masked. If you're an officer of the law, you have no reason to cover your face. And doxing is not an excuse because of the fact that if a normal police officer doesn't need a mask, what do they?
Here's the thing, and I'm not gonna get too much into that because my responsibility is paving roads, right, and water bills, believe it or not. The fact
you
is,
advocate for our city by reaching out to the governor and our congressman. As you mentioned, you do work with mills.
so I do, but I'm not gonna advocate for somebody that's broken the law. Let me just explain. Now, I'm not trying to get controversial.
That is a civil matter, though. It is.
No, it's not. So let me just say
being
this.
here illegally
Hold
does
on.
not constitute.
Listen, I let you speak. Let me speak really quick. The Constitution of the United States doesn't grant anybody any rights. It tells let me finish. It tells governments when they're trying to assert rights that are not defined by the government. All right. Meaning, if I am a U.S. citizen or a born U.S. citizen, my rights are derived from whoever you feel your creator is, not from the government. So the moment you come into this country legally and you become a citizen, you have a right to be here. But if you come into this country for good, bad, or ugly, illegally, you literally broke the law. And I'm not going to advocate for somebody who broke the law. Furthermore, when we talk about people separating from families, listen, if I don't want to pick on anybody, I'm going to pick on you. If Mr. Jesse goes to the store and he steals something from the store, you okay with me saying you have grandkids and kids in your house? He's going to go to jail. He's going to get separated from his family. I mean, I'm not advocating for people to get taken to jail, but we have to be law-abiding citizens. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not going to advocate for us to sit here and say, hey, can we stop arresting people because you're trying to do your job? Number one, that's not really my position. That's the sheriff's responsibility.
There's been a couple infringements on rights, and you obviously don't want to discuss those specific points,
Because I don't
but-
think
But they
it
should
helps.
not be covering their faces. There's no reason for that, and you should be advocating in our city to not have that happen.
You want to know why I don't agree with that?
Why?
I'm going to tell you my personal experience.
You're a
I have
public
to.
service worker, you're here, you don't have your face covered. They're not
Correct.
covering it.
Well, let me tell you, my wife didn't sign up for that. I'm going to explain why. I have people that have sent me pictures saying, hey, this guy just sent me this, and it's a picture of my wife loading my two daughters, one that's going to be 4 and one that just turned 2, into the car with my address posted all over there. My address has been doxxed. The very next day, a guy comes to my house when I'm not there, when my wife and my 2 daughters are there by themselves with a box, knocking on the door. Sheriff has to show up. Somebody ends up going to jail. You can pull that information.
That's a risk that they took when they signed up to be an ICE agent.
Respectfully, we're going to move on from that. That is the most BS answer I've ever heard.
Well, I'm glad
Those-
that you guys are
those-
too.
Those are,
That's great.
listen, those are my 2 daughters. And for people to show up to my house that
This
way,
isn't about your daughters.
You're
Okay,
right.
can I call timeout?
go ahead.
Because we're here for a town hall.
Correct, yes.
Don't
And we got 4 minutes anyway, so.
Alright, we'll get back on top, stay on top here. So maybe I missed this, but the streets to be built, resurface and stripe. I don't know if you answered this, but so how do you decide what streets are? Do you guys answer this already?
Yes.
Yeah, but answer it again,
Okay.
because it's a short answer, it's a good answer.
So the ones that are already on this list have already been decided from the previous interim city manager, Matt Glenn, which is, so moving forward, when we do the list, they're gonna look at the streets that are crocodiling or in very bad disarray, and that's how they're gonna do it moving forward.
Awesome. Okay, one more thing. So I know you, Mr. Jessica, I think, kind of talked about the vision meeting we had in 2025 and all that as well. And I was part of those. So how are those plans looking to actually move forward with what was designed from that? Are there going to be any more meetings? Could that come from that, or?
Today, they met on the Vision 2050. They met on
Sorry, who was they, by the way?
Huh?
They who?
the consultants.
Okay.
They met with, I guess, the owners of some of the only land we have available, and they talked about more commercial growth, and they talked about some walkability, implementing some affordable housing, but more importantly, the commercial portion with mixed use, to have, you can call it downtown, uptown, a city center, whatever label you want to put on it. For a city to be successful, you need a 15% commercial base. Deltona, when I got elected, had 3. We're at 8% now. Again, another reason why we're able to lower our millage a little bit more. So they have been talking about it. I think by beginning of 2026, they're going to start bringing in the public to see how they feel about the visioning, and then the public and the commission will make a decision.
So 2026, beginning, we're going to start doing meetings again?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna go a whole year without hearing any results from those visioning sessions?
No, so
Because the visioning sessions it ended in December of last year, right?
yeah, but they're working on the city center or the downtown or uptown component of it now. And now they're working with the people that own that land. So
And where is that? I'm sorry.
that's what they're trying to figure out, where they would like to essentially put any of that in.
So what is going on around the Epic Theater?
Those are some of the things that they're talking about. They're trying to figure that out. Like right now, the one building you see going up, that's gonna be like a Chipotle. We have like 3 restaurants coming in by the hospital. Those are the ones that I know that I'm allowed to say, so the other ones, until they finalize the phases, I can't really talk too much about.
Your slide deck, we'll be able to get it.
Yep, if you take my business card, I will email it to you and I'm gonna make it available anyway, so. I got a minute left, so I'll take one more question. Go ahead.
So when these businesses come in, how does they affect our taxes? Because we bring people in, people come out of the city, we bring more money in the city, so.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, because I know he was talking about tax, but if we started to build businesses and have an infrastructure where people come in and hang out in our city and, you know, take in everything, and should that offset some of the?
They pay a lot more in taxes. Once they develop that property, it's a lot more.
So they do pay a higher commercial-based tax.
Right.
As far as the sales portion of it, that whatever that portion is decided by the state and that comes back to us. That's usually what we use to do the roads and sidewalks and things of that nature. But where we see the big differences is in the property taxes. Like Amazon pays a lot of property tax. Did I agree with some of the stuff they did and giving them like 3 years of free taxes? No, I don't, but I wasn't like that at the time. Now they're paying taxes. So now we're starting to see, and again, another reason why we're able to lower the millage. So, well, I appreciate you guys coming to the town hall. I try to have an open dialogue. So again, my business card is back there. Our state rep's business card is back there. SBA, I still have their business cards because they still communicate with us. Their information is back there, and then there's literature on hurricanes and some of our Deltona magazines. So whatever you want to take, please, it's free to take. So you all have a good day, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I didn't hear you.